Hello there. I'd like to consider myself pretty good on ice, seeing as I spent over 100 hours just on straight ice. And I've published and beaten some of the hardest ice maps in the game, including one of my own, Deep Dip. And in the time that I've spent on ice, I have learned many things, much too many to explain in one video alone. So if you want to see a part 2 or part 3 even maybe, then make sure to let me know. But I want to talk about the 5 most important things any ice player should know. The first thing that we are going to talk about is adjust height. Now it might seem like a given thing that adjust height is like, oh, adjust height, that just makes you taller so you can do more things. But adjust height really helps, especially when ice maps are completely based on height, which a ton of them are. And I have fallen victim into making some of my own height-based ice maps, but mostly I like to keep them non-height-based, just like this. And adjust height now has a second option where you can adjust it in the setting. So if I go into settings here, you can see if I turn on adjust height, I can now adjust how tall I am, based just without even changing anything else. So I can do stuff like this, and I can make sure it's the right height. But rather than just talking about adjust height, I want to talk about height itself. Height really matters when you're playing ice maps. If you're super tiny, if you're super short, and you go over something that's short, then you'll be launched up. But if you're super tall and you go over something that's short, then you will not be launched up. It's completely based off of that. And especially the higher things are, the higher you will be launched. This can play an extremely big factor in how your ice gameplay results. The next thing I'm going to talk about is something that you wouldn't really think of if you think of ice. We're going to talk about bouncing. Now, when you first think of ice, yeah, you definitely don't think of bouncing. You're like, oh, what does bouncing have to do with ice? But in reality, it has probably a lot to do with it. If you've seen like any ice map, you've probably seen a bounce pattern in it. And therefore, it's important to learn about if you're going to be an ice player. Bouncing has many things and many ways to control it, even though it seems like such a simple feature. There's so many different things that you can do. Now we're going to talk about 2 things about bouncing that you should know. So bouncing is pretty basic by itself. It takes 80% of your momentum and converts it into the angle that you hit the bounce block at and the angle of attack that you hit the bounce block at, as you can see in this demonstration. However, there are some instances where this doesn't happen at all. For example, if I were to hit this correctly, I can actually grab onto the bounce block, which if you didn't know is actually possible on basic bounce blocks if you just don't have any bounce. But usually if you're going at a momentum, you cannot grab onto a bounce block unless it's angled in the correct orientation, like this. The next thing you can do to control bounce blocks is by hitting it with the corner of your head. If you do it just right, you should bounce up like that. Just like that. If you hit it just right, that happens. But it also can result in something else, such as bouncing off the corner like this. There are many angles that can come out of this, and this is called corner bouncing, which we will come back to in a little bit. Now we're going to talk about the third thing, which is stopping. By itself, stopping sounds simple. You just come to a stop. But it's much more than that, and you can do a lot more with stopping than you think. Such as, oh, this jump right here. I can just stop like this, right? It might seem impossible to stop on some surfaces, but trust me, it is. I'm going to give a little demonstration on what stopping can look like for you and how to do it. So originally, if you're a normal player, you're like, oh, this doesn't seem possible to stop on. I'm going to share with you something that might just change this for you. Like that. Now stopping in itself is very easy. You basically just do the opposite of what you do on ice. If you want to go forward, you go like that. If you want to go backwards, you do like that. And so that's what you got to do. You have to do a big boom like that. If you do a boom home like that, it can cause you to slow down in much less time, as shown here. Now, stopping in itself isn't the easiest thing to learn. There's another way to stop that's much more luck-based, rather than skill based. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about corner bouncing, which is also going to be our number 4th. Corner bouncing in itself sounds simple. You just bounce off a corner. And yeah, that's basically what it is. But the thing about it is it's so unbelievably hard to keep consistent. It's just like you have to do everything perfect just to land on the corner like it. I'm going to show you just how perfect. And it's going to take me multiple attempts just to get this, but there we go. Now I've theorized about a way to make this more consistent, such as you squat down, you hit about there, and then you stand back up quick enough to hit right there. So you basically are just being stopped by this, but I've never actually performed that trick. Now corner bouncing in itself isn't really useful in some levels, but some hard levels, if you're planning to be an ice player, are going to have to use this trick. Like I've said, this trick is not consistent at all, so I would really recommend the other way of stopping, but this is also just a backup if it's way too hard to even stop there. This last one kind of goes off the last two as well. It's called speed control. Now speed control can be a really large factor in ice maps that you play, such as this one where you have to slow down at rapid speeds and speed up in small spaces. So, speed control, I've already talked about slowing down and 2 ways to do it, but now I'm going to talk about how to speed up. This is called the windmill method. The windmill method uses the fact that your hands are going in a circular motion like this, so you're always constantly having forward momentum. This is the best possible way to do this without T-posing, which I will explain in a minute, and can come in lots of handy when dealing with large gaps in ice maps. But now, like I said, I'm going to talk about T-posing. T-posing is when you spin in the game one way, like so, and spin in real life the other way, like so, creating an effect where you just go forward like this. Now if you do this correct and grab down on ice, then you should spin forward or backwards depending on which hand that you use. So if you're spinning in-game right and spinning in real life left, then you should grab with the left hand. If you're spinning in-game left and spinning in real life right, then you should grab with the right hand. So I'm going to spin left in real life and grab with the left hand. And also make sure that you have it on the correct turning speed, because if you do something too high for even you to handle, then it's going to end up looking bad for you. You're going to go off the side, you're not going to be able to control it. But anyways, this is what T-posing will look like if you do it correctly. But when you're doing something like this, make sure to realize that you are still in VR, because you're going to hit things that you might not want to hit at all, and you can get very dizzy and fall over. This is only a final source of backup if you still can't make a jump after the windmill method. But the largest thing to take into account out of all of these is practice. You cannot get good at anything without using practice. As I've said, I've over 100 hours on just straight ice. So to get better, spend more time on ice. That's all I can say for now. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions about any tips, please feel free to comment about them, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Thank you so much. See you later. I like my cheese drippy, bruh.